TOPLOBSTA Productions.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight and be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is TOPLOBSTA, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, I would like to remind all of our live viewers that this is a 30-minute preview only. Sometime around the 30-minute mark, we'll be going live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad, where you can continue enjoying an ad-free viewing experience, engaging with the live chat, as well as gaining early access to the episode before the general public, and you could do it all for free. That's right, guys. Sign up for the 7-day free trial, absorb our content, and get out of there before you ever have to pay us a penny. But I bet you're going to want to stay. And that's our entire plot, is that it's such a banger, such a treasure trove of content. There's so many goodies that await you that you're not going to want to leave. You're going to want to stay. And if you do, you're going to have to pay. Anyway, guys, joining us today is Ryder Lee, back for the second time on Nephilim Death Squad. Ryder, for the audience who may not be familiar with you, where can they find your work and what is it that you focus on?
I focus on all kinds of different topics, gentlemen, just like you guys do. And you can find me on Raised by Giants on YouTube and any and all podcast platforms. I'm also a documentarian. I think that's a word.
You got it. Documentarian.
Documentarian. And I have 2 films on Amazon Prime, JFKX and A Clockwork Shining.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Very cool.
I'm excited to get into your work today because it's a little bit of a special preview, something you're working on. And I think you realize that our little our spiel had some significant overlap, and we probably get a lot of facts wrong. So I'm sure your research is much better than ours. Excited to hear about it. This is like Operation Stargate, DIA, CIA, secret operations, MK Ultra, right? What are we getting into, man? What's the name of it?
Well, what got me started down this rabbit hole was that I was studying the MK Ultra documents, just like you guys were, and I realized that there were several sub-projects of MK Ultra. There's 149 sub-projects. Well, I mean, that's the ones that we know of, right? Because it said that
149.
It was said that a lot of them got destroyed. So a lot of the records of MK Ultra, over half of them all got destroyed and burned, right? But out of the ones that we know of, the 149 sub-projects, there were 5 sub-projects that was dedicated to psychic research and trying to induce these types of psychic experiences, intuition, remote viewing, telekinesis. And I was like, that's really interesting, because I know that the government had a psychic spy remote viewing program. So are these 2 things connected? And then I was like, well, I need to try and get a hold of these people. So of the people that are legitimately in the Stargate remote viewing program, or formerly was in the program, which is another thing, because I think that they continued this program. They just did it under something completely different. They found a different use for it, and then they started doing that. And that's probably still going on to this day, though we have really no proof and no evidence, other than there's a lady that was in the Stargate psychic spy program that is still working within the government. So all the people that are on the list that was officially in the program, which is less than 20 people, has ever been in the Stargate remote viewing unit, DIA Army Intelligence.
It's
And
actually
that's
a
another
much
thing.
smaller group than I thought it would be. They're really
It's
kind of keeping that under wraps.
it's way smaller, and that's another issue and another problem because so many people claim to be a part of this Stargate program, right? When they're not, and they never were. But there was
Mm.
another program that was kind of running simultaneously that kind of had some overlap, which was the Gateway program. And some people may have been a part of the Gateway program and they're getting it confused with the Stargate program because they're very similar in name and it was a long time ago. But that was done by Robert Monroe, as you guys probably know about the Gateway program. But those two names are very similar. So people could go to Robert Monroe at the Monroe Institute and that was to like try and induce an out of body experience by putting the frequencies in your head and you put on listen to tapes, and then that was to induce an out of body experience. And now the only overlap between that is that a few people from the Stargate program ended up going to the Monroe Institute, like Joe McMoneagle. He left the Stargate program and started up at the Monroe Institute, and he's essentially the head of the Monroe Institute to this very day. So there's a lot of people that have gotten that kind of confused, and you could essentially go to the Monroe Institute back in the day and pay them money, and then you would go through this type of gateway experience to
Hmm.
try and induce an out of body experience. So but those things are not really connected at all. They're two separate things, and but the only connection that there is that I might be jumping the gun a little bit here, but the at some point Army intelligence paid Robert Monroe in the Monroe Institute. I think it was like $2,000. It's in the official documents. Around $2,000 to send their Army intelligence people to go to the Monroe Institute to do this gateway program because they thought maybe somehow it would help with what they were doing, like to try and see if any of this stuff is connected, is an out of body experience connected to having psychic abilities, which I think that it is. I think that out of body experiences and NDE experiences or near death experiences are also connected because whenever you have an NDE experience,
Mm-hmm.
people normally come back different, right? So whenever they leave their body or if they have an out of body experience and then they come back into their body, they're normally different. They normally like want to change their lives. And that's another rabbit hole that I went down as well. Like it seems like that they are a completely different person whenever they come back. So it's like, well, what is coming back into them? Is that a different consciousness? Is that a split consciousness? Is
Mm-hmm.
that their own consciousness? Is that their own consciousness mixed with some other consciousness? Who knows? No one really knows. But I think that more study needs to be done into NDEs and these psychic abilities because a lot of the people that I've talked to that were that claim to be psychic, and some of the people that were a part of this official Stargate remote viewing unit by DIA and Army intelligence have had near death experiences.
Mm. I wonder if many of them have had abduction experiences because there seems to be a big overlap in a lot of at least the patterns in the storytelling, that people will come back from abduction experiences or even NDE, near death experiences, things of that nature. Um, it's this is a little bit of an aside, but I wanted to mention this. I was watching what the hell's the name of the show? Top with the autistic people. I Love on the Spectrum,
Love on the spectrum.
and I got to that part where they mentioned synesthesia
Mhm.
and the one boyfriend, autistic boyfriend, he associates numbers with colors. But I thought was really significant about it is later on the girlfriend sings a song. Did you get to that part yet, Top, where the
Yeah, I buried my head under the
it
pillow
was
though, because it's
okay,
one
all
of
right.
those.
It's a very cringy moment,
Yeah.
but I was like, this is a good song, though. It is a good song, like you could hear it on the radio. There was no
Yep.
verses. I mean, there was no chorus, right? There was no hook. It was just straight lyrics, dude. Like she just killed it for 3 minutes.
Spitting
Never
bars.
didn't repeat. But I was listening to her, and I'm like, it's not like she has a tremendous voice, but she knows exactly like where her pitch should be.
Mhm.
And I started thinking about that where you were talking about perfect pitch, Top, and I'm looking at this couple And I'm like, it's so strange because she does have this uncanny ability to present the correct pitch. This is a well done pop song. If you just reduced it a little bit and added a chorus, this could be a banger on the radio. But then also his ability to see numbers associated with colors, I thought that was very
Well,
strange. And yet,
the other guy with the hat as well. I don't know where this is leading to, but he's like a DJ, autistic dude that's a DJ, and the girl that he was on the date with is naming every song, and he's telling her the key signature and even the time slips within the song just by thinking about it. So
yeah,
that's perfect pitch as well. It's like that's extreme perfect pitch, just thinking of the song, not even hearing it.
the reason that I was thinking about that is because I know that there is a frequency that is associated with disassociation. So much of what we're looking at here, whether it's near death experiences, or out of body experiences, astral projecting, remote viewing, you name it. Even the Monroe Institute, there's tapes you could listen to the tapes, and they'll teach you in some way how to disassociate. Um, and then even going back to like the Gates program, when you're listening to that and they're trying to find out if you're a fit for the gifted and talented, what the ever, it's all frequency based. It's like they'll put a headset on you and they'll go, "Can you hear that tone? Can you hear that tone? Can you?" And they get harder and harder to perceive. But in the Monroe method or whatever it's called, and then also in astral projection, there's like a binaural beats aspect to it. So if you want to astral project, if you want to disassociate, there's actually, and I'm not recommending people do this, but there are binaural beats. There are frequencies that you can listen to that will get your mind in the correct space to then somehow slip out of your body. Basically, what I'm saying is all of these things are connected. There's a frequency, or frequency is at the heart of all of this.
I don't really trust those tapes though, because you have no idea what people put in there or what people actually did with
Yeah,
those tapes. Like they could sneak in other different kinds of stuff into the tapes. Like who knows what's actually in those types of tapes. So I personally don't trust them. But apparently, you have to have some sort of old school headphones for them to actually work, because apparently the types of frequencies that are coming through there, like the new headphones, don't emit that old style type of frequency. So you have to have an old ass pair of headphones for them to work. But you're mentioning like this idea that because I think it was it Thomas Campbell that was on Joe Rogan, where he was essentially talking about the Monroe Institute, and he was really good friends with Robert Monroe. And he essentially, every time that he would sit down and do a meditation, he would be outside of his body. And he was a
mm,
computer programmer, right? And he was like computer science stuff. And whenever he would sit down to meditate, he would instantly be outside of his body, and then he would see all of the errors in all of his code
huh?
whenever he would sit down and meditate. So then whenever he would go back to fix this code, he would automatically know where all the errors are. He didn't have to do any trial and error with any of his stuff. So something, he was tapping into some kind of information data field out there that was giving him the answers to his code. I thought that was one of the more interesting Joe Rogan episodes of recent times, because he's essentially talking about Robert Monroe and the Monroe Institute and how he would sit down and do this meditation, and he would be given all this information about his work and how to fix his code.
That's fascinating. I wonder if there's a connection there because we're aware of that guy. What is it? The surgeon of the rusty knife or something like that. And but in his issue, this is a guy that had no formal training in surgery, but then was able to still conduct surgery to quite a degree of success, curing people from various ailments, cutting tumors out, and things of that nature. Previously, he was just a taxi cab driver, but the story for that is outright that he was channeling. But I don't know. I mean,
Well, a lot of
even
these
the whole
kids as well, they talk about the Akashic records. I don't even know what I think about that. I guess it's like this sort of thing that's in the ethereal realm that can be tapped into and looked at. Is that what
I
we're
know
describing, Ryder?
I know
Nobody
Jonah.
knows what that is. They like to throw that word out there.
Yes.
Akashic. I'm in the Akashic records. I'm seeing all the records. I know exactly what's going on. And then they have no
So
idea
many
what that
records.
means or what that even is. It's like the halls of Amente, right? They're like a lot of this stuff is metaphorical and allegorical. It's not like a literal place,
Mm.
and it's not a literal thing. And that's a really big issue too. But there was a place that I was going, and I completely lost my train of thought there with the Akashic record stuff.
Well, I just want to say
But
as an aside that our boy Donut made an attempt. I don't
Oh
know to
yeah.
what degree he found any success or anything like that, but he made an attempt to listen to the Monroe tapes to try to get into this remote viewing mind space and to try to view the Akashic records. I don't know if he had any success with that. He's still a podcaster, so I would imagine no. 'Cause I don't know what kind of things you glean from the Akashic records, but if they're not helping you to get out of this grind, then I don't know what worth they actually are.
yeah, so essentially what happened was is I got a hold of the people that I knew that were verifiably in the Stargate program. A person that
You got a hold of
that
them?
yeah, I've had
Fuck
a
yeah,
majority of
dude.
them on my show.
Fuck yeah.
So I had this one gentleman on that I had met at UFO MegaCon like 3 or 4 years ago. His name is Trey Hudson. He's former DoD. He worked in the military and everything. And I had him on my show. I was like, "Hey, bro, like, what do you know about this remote viewing stuff?" Because the remote viewing Army Intelligence DIA program was also under the banner of the DoD. So essentially, the DoD runs everything, and there's these like sub people that are underneath it that have the name that are essentially also running it, but it's all under the DoD. The Department of Defense essentially runs every single program, regardless of it's all under the DoD banner, right? And I
Mm.
was like, "Oh, well, what do you know about these remote viewing programs?" And he was like, "Well, I know a lot about them. Like, I have all of the documents on them." And I was like, "Okay." And at this time, very few of the documents were available online. Like you couldn't just type in Sunstreak remote viewing document and the CIA's website pulls up and you can read about it, which is happening now.
Yeah.
Like the Sunstreak document where they're talking about the Ark of the Covenant being remote
Mhm.
viewed, which I know exactly who the person was. It's been on my show. That was the person that remote viewed the Ark of the Covenant.
Really? So what do you think about that claim?
Well, I haven't exactly gotten his opinion on it yet, but I've had all this information for around 3 years now. I've had all of the documents. I've known about this for a really long time, and I've kind of just been sitting on it because I've been wanting to do something really big with it.
Mm.
Been wanting to put together something really big, and it's going to be the basis of my newest and latest documentary that's going to be on this stuff. So you guys are getting a really big preview right now
That's
of the kind of essence and the basis of what that documentary is going to be.
When will
fucking
it be
awesome.
out? Or when do you think?
Well, I'm in the writing phases right now. I'm almost finished, completely writing it, and then we'll probably go into production and hopefully middle of summer. I'm going to try and knock out a few interviews in the middle of summer, so it probably won't be out for probably close to the end of the year. So
What state are you
Ryder.
in?
6 months.
Yeah, exactly. I see David's little
Mhm.
clockwork and the monkey with the symbols. You're
What
you're
state are
3
you in,
hours
Ryder?
though, right? You're on the
I'm
West
in
Coast?
California. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's not
Um,
a problem that's not solvable.
we
We're
are
having,
let's just
Bohemian
say,
Grove
yeah,
this year.
Bohemian Grove is gonna be, the 20th and the 21st of June, right?
Yeah, 20th and the 21st of June, and
Okay,
a
we
lot of
were
the material is gonna be about this,
and
so you might
Ryder,
wanna come hang out.
maybe we
Yeah.
might be able to present you a little caveat if we can get you down there. We are gonna
Mm.
have, or I mean, our plan is, and we most likely will have a documentary crew that's
Mhm.
gonna be working on this. So recording most of this event that's going on, at least the conspiracy side, not necessarily the comedy side. And we were
Yeah, we
planning on
can't
doing
record
our
that.
own documentary, but maybe we can collaborate, or maybe there's something to do there. If you
Mm.
know, I don't know. We'll think about that. Put that a
Yeah,
little
it's
pin
fine
in
'cause
Absolutely.
that.
it's an open invitation, Ryder, and maybe we'll iron out some of those details later on, but, um, yeah, there's a huge amount of overlap between what we're doing and what you're doing, but to your credit, you're actually talking to the fucking people that were there, and
Yeah.
we're not doing that.
And that was really important to me because like I was mentioning, for sure I'm 100% down with that. Let's chat after the show for sure. Let's get in contact with that because I'm definitely interested.
Mm.
But that was really important for me to actually reach out to the people that were involved in these programs. And I had some of these people on before before freaking not Lex Friedman, what's his name? Sean Ryan had them
Right.
on their show before he started delving deep into the remote viewing stuff. Like I had Angela Ford on like 3 years ago, and then he recently just had Angela Ford on his show. So I've been in contact with these people and I know them, and I consider myself pretty good friends with them. And it was important for me to actually talk to them because there's a lot of people that are like self-proclaimed remote viewers,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not really remote viewing. And these government remote viewers will tell you that they're not remote viewing. They're using their imagination. There's a very and people can argue with me about this, whatever, but you can now go on and see the document online. You can now go on and see the Sunstreak document. Okay, so and that's where I got the bulk of my information because it essentially lays out the entire history of the government remote viewing program and their study and their interest into it.
Hmm.
It's a very sophisticated process. Like you can't just sit down and close your eyes and uh, remote view something.
Hmm.
That's not the way the remote viewing works. It's never been designed that way. It's a very strenuous, sophisticated process. Like you have to have people that assign the target, and the person that is assigning the target cannot. They have to be essentially be trained to assign the target. Okay,
Hmm.
you can't just look at a photo of like, let's say I have this freaking Antarctica Reader's Digest book here. I can't just look at the cover of this freaking Antarctica book and then all of a sudden remote view Antarctica.
Right. I
That's
always
not the
wondered
way
about
that it
that because if you
works.
look into it, we became aware of the remote viewing phenomenon. Obviously, peripherally aware forever. It's been around for so long, but we ended up knocking into it content wise when it came to the Cliff High predictions and his web bot. And Cliff High, for those of you who don't know, but this is our audience, so they're rolling their eyes right now.
No,
Um,
it's been long enough. They
it's
probably
been
like,
long enough that they
yeah.
don't. Okay, fine. So they're doing half an eye roll.
Have you
Uh,
spoke with this guy?
is that the guy from Cliff High's remote viewing?
Dick Algeier, I think his name is.
Yeah, there's Dick.
I've heard of him.
Um,
I don't know about him though.
so essentially, what happens is Cliff High he has a rudimentary AI bot that scrapes data off the internet, and through that data, in conjunction with some emotionally charged vocabulary, it's a little bit weird. He's able to derive predictions, or at least the AI is able to derive predictions about the future, and it spits out key phrases and words, and it leaves Cliff as the interpreter of these key phrases and words. And one of the things that it predicted was the Donald Trump and Joe Rogan interview on the JRE that happened, I guess a year ago now. Was it a year ago? How long
Well,
ago was it?
maybe Ryder, you could explain to us. Yeah, that was about no, that was October. That was when Bohemian Grove happened, like a
Man,
right
so
before the
crazy.
last
But
one.
the
But
short of it is just that to flesh
there
out the rest of that prediction, he used a remote viewer.
and there are numbers that he gave him, which I don't understand at all how
That's what
this
I'm saying.
works.
Yeah.
He gave him it was like R and then like maybe six numbers, and the guy was able to take those numbers and then remote view whatever from that, and he
But to
got
your point, Ryder, Cliff couldn't tell him details about what he wanted him to
he
view.
didn't
He
even
just
tell him it
gave
was
him,
him.
That's exactly right. It's a blind remote viewing. If
yeah,
you know the target, you can't remote view the target because your
Mm.
subconscious mind has already been tricked into believing what you're going to see.
dude. That's okay. So sometimes,
That's what people don't understand. That's what they
yeah,
don't get about this remote viewing stuff. They think that they can just sit down and look at whatever and then just remote view it. That's not remote viewing. That's just sitting down and closing your eyes and using your freaking imagination
yeah,
of what you think
you're
that you're supposed to see. The remote viewer is blind to the target. That's where the person that is assigning the target comes in. Okay. So the person that's assigning the target essentially has to
yeah.
put
There it goes.
so okay, this set of numbers right here. This was basically invented by Ingo Swann, right? It's called coordinate remote viewing. But
Interesting.
the coordinates isn't they don't mean anything.
Really?
The coordinates don't mean anything.
So
The
are they
coordinates
somehow
are
inherently charged with something based off the?
exactly.
Okay, okay, all right. I see.
Yeah.
Intention. Whoa,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's Even crazier, dude.
That's even crazier. Yeah, because if they're coordinates, you go, oh, they've mapped out the astral realm, and it's like that's not what's happening here.
Nope.
There is an intent that's imbued upon that coded, series of numbers and letters, and that somehow that other person, that remote viewer, can tap into the intent that you've bestowed upon that code. That's fascinating.
That's
Ryder,
what it is.
another thing with so in the upper right hand corner in the middle of the page here, he has like it's a compass, and we
Yeah,
think it's
a
a
wheel.
spirit compass. Is this something that you've seen as well?
What part am I looking at?
Go up top a little bit.
Sorry, I
It's
can't. Yeah,
it's
that
above
right
this
there,
character,
the
right there.
circle with the cross.
Well, this is like a sketch, and what do they call it? Not an ideogram, or there's a specific word for what they sketch out. So whenever the remote viewer is doing a remote viewing session, like a legit remote viewer, like a government remote viewer, people that have been trained to be able to remote view. Like, and some of these people within the Stargate program do train other people on how to remote view, and they go through the process. So, what essentially happens is whenever they're remote viewing, they sketch out like all the details. Like, if you were to pull up well, you probably can't find it because it's not readily available online. But if you were to pull up the syndicate document from SRI from 1973, you will see in the syndicate SRI document all the sketches that Pat Price and Ingo Swann was doing on the target that was given to them on the base in West Virginia, on the military base in West Virginia. So they essentially sketch everything out, and then they write like little details, because if they don't, then you're relying on total recall. You're relying on them to remember all the information. But it's normally a lot of information coming at them at one time, so they have to sketch things out. They have to sketch things down. Like Joe McMoneagle, he got information that that there was this big, huge hangar, this brand new submarine that was being built, unlike any other submarine that had ever been seen
That's right.
before. And
Yeah.
then he sketched all that out and how it operated, what it looked like, the hangar that it was in, and that's how they got the information.
See, I think this is a natural phenomenon, but that does need to be trained, because I think we all have something my grandmother, interestingly enough, was a alien abductee victim. Also hand wrote a lot of paperwork on remote viewing. Unfortunately, she died when I was a kid, so like I never got to ask her these questions. I can't imagine like why a woman would be writing paperwork on the process of remote viewing. Very, very strange, but um I think that, she fancied herself a clairvoyant too. I think I have some remnant of that. But what gets in the way every single time, and I've like set out to do this, like I've laid down and be like, let's go, baby, because weird does happen. I do go to weird places. I do see weird things. As soon as I try to think about what the is happening, everything goes away. Everything goes away. The second I scrutinize it and I'm like, what am I seeing? What is this? What is this? As soon as I do, it just it all fades away and I'm just looking at blackness behind my eyeballs again. So there's something that is intrinsic to us, like we have it. It's within our nature, or else we wouldn't be able to train it, right? But it seems like there is a process, because if there wasn't a process, like if it was just a natural, like think real hard type of thing, I'd have done it already. I used to be homeless and I would spend a lot of time in the dark at night, too sad to sleep, just looking at the blackness behind my eyeballs. There is a process. I agree with that. It needs to be trained. And then the question is, should it? I don't know. I don't know if it should. I'm still, waiting around in those waters. But I do think that there is a natural aspect to this.
Yeah, that's what all of them will tell you, is that, we all have this ability to do it. It's just like a muscle that needs to be exercised, right?
Mm,
Like, you don't build muscle by not exercising and sitting on your couch all day, right? You have
right.
to go to the gym and like work that out, and you have to train yourself, and you have to have discipline. Right? So if you're
Mm,
not flexing that muscle and you're not training, then it essentially just lays dormant.
atrophies.
Yes.
Interesting. Interesting.
Now, the information that I've gotten into is, which is the main reason that I'm here today, and it may not seem like it's important to a lot of people, but it's really important to me right? Because I think that you have to understand how this Army intelligence psychic spy program, came to be, and the
Mm.
history of, because it's very convoluted. There's several name changes. There's different funding apparatuses, and so this is like a compilation of the basis of what's going to be my documentary. And I mean, obviously it doesn't have all the remote viewers testimony and exactly what they were doing in here, because this is based off of all of the documents that I have on remote viewing from official unclassified documents. So really, in order to like figure out the Stargate remote viewing unit at Fort Meade, first off, you would have to have a in order to be in this program,
Mhm.
you have to have a military record of being in the program, right? Because it's a military program. So several of the people that are claiming to be a part of this program are just lying, and they're making things up. And that is technically like committing uh, stolen valor, right? They're
Mm.
claiming things that absolutely cannot be verified and that they were never a part of. Like, they're pretending to be in the military. And that's another thing that people don't really realize, because the CIA is one thing, the military is a completely different thing. And when people think that this was a CIA program, it's easy to say, oh, well, you really can't get in trouble for saying that you were in some sort of CIA program. There's not really strict laws around that, but there are more strict laws when it comes to stolen valor and
Mm.
saying that you were a part of a military program when you weren't.
Hmm.
So everything that I'm getting ready to mention, unless I clarify and say that it's not a part of the documents and it's my own personal opinion, came from these verified Defense Intelligence Agency unclassified documents. I've read them several times, and I even reread them to make sure that everything that I'm about to say is very accurate.
All right. Well, before we do that, then I have to. This is such a perfect time to end this for people, guys. We're at the 34-minute mark, which means that we are now going live exclusively to Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. There are two places actually where you can continue watching along. You can go to Ryder's YouTube page, Raised by Giants, and continue watching the entire episode there. If you don't subscribe while you're there, you're an asshole. Or you can go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad, and continue being a part of the live chat, checking out this conversation, and also gaining early access to the episode. And, not an ad, or it's an ad-free viewing experience. So you can go and check that out too. Otherwise, we are out of here. Bye, guys. All right. Now that they are it's nice that when somebody brings, I read the documents, I double read the doc, and then I went back and I verified that I read the documents the right way. That's really nice. That's refreshing. We don't get that on this show. We don't read documents at all, actually. We go entirely with our balls, which is why we're
Balls to
wrong
the
so
wall,
often.
baby.
Balls to the wall. So very refreshing to hear that somebody has read something, and are now going to present it to two dudes who can't read. I'm really looking forward to this. So pick it up wherever you'd like, Ryder.
Well, apparently, a lot of people can't read. Seems like that. I know that you're joking, but a lot of Americans, like a lot of kids nowadays, can't read. They can't write. They
Yeah.
can't spell. They can't tell time. It's unbelievable. But so, pretty much all of the military services at one point in time or another has been involved in psychoenergetics. Now, psychoenergetics is what is described in these documents. They don't come out and really say remote viewing, they refer to it as psychoenergetics.
Mm.
And most of the military services have found it that it's applications oriented, meaning that they found a use for it. Now, that doesn't mean that they all ran their own programs. They did not. But what I mean by that they were involved is that they would give tasking to Army intelligence and the DIA, right? It doesn't mean that they all ran their own separate programs,
Mm.
but the CIA could task Army intelligence and the DIA to on a target. right? So if we had a missing downed airplane in Russia or whatever, then the CIA would contact Army intelligence and the DIA on this target, and then they would have their remote viewers try and remote viewer the missing downed airplane, right? That's the way that it works. But people have lumped all of these things in together and think that everybody had their own like remote viewing unit, but they didn't.
Right.
Okay, so where all this starts is with SRI, Stanford Research Institute. But the government was also doing studies in parapsychology earlier than SRI. They did it with Duke University in the 30s, Parapsychology Foundation in New York in the 50s, Mind Science Foundation in the 60s, and a bunch of other research foundations and centers earlier than SRI. But the thing that kicked it off was SRI in the early 70s. So it's important to establish a little bit of background on SRI. SRI's first research investigation was whether a plant could be used as a source of natural rubber. So from 1942 to 1946, that funding to figure out if a plant could be used as a source of like rubber for the war, for World War II, that funding got cut. So in 1947, the Air Force wanted to determine if U.S. aircraft, the U.S. aircraft industry, had like expansion potential, right? So after the war, they were like, okay, well, how far can we expand this aircraft industry? SRI found that it would take too long to escalate the production in an emergency. So in 1948, SRI began research and consultation for the Chevron Corporation to develop an artificial substitute for coconut oil and soap products, right? So the reason for mentioning all that is to establish that SRI is a government contractor. And most government contractors are a front for the intelligence community. And it's also establishing that SRI worked for the Air Force prior, which is a very important thing to remember when we get into things later on. So SRI formally separated from Stanford Research, Stanford University, sorry.
When was that study done about the rubber tree plant? The rubber plant?
The rubber plant was in 1942.
Okay. All right. For some reason, I just like they used to sing us this dumbass song in school. It's a
Oh,
Frank
yeah,
Sinatra song.
the rubber
I
tree
hope.
plant song.
Yeah, the rubber tree plant. I was like, I never like what the are you talking about here? A rubber tree plant, but like over and over we'd sing it. I just wonder if there's
Not the ants.
yeah, the ants
Yeah,
moving the
yeah,
rubber
yeah.
tree plant. It never really made sense to me, but I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a strange song.
I'm sorry, Ryder. That was just,
And it was done by SRI, bro.
Seriously. It just triggered our MK Ultra programming.
Yeah.
yeah.
Manchurian
I need to
Candidate
go
style.
shoot up something. I don't know what just happened, but something's taken over me.
So SRI formally split from Stanford University in 1970, but it didn't become known as SRI International until 1977, which is another contention. There's kind of two separations here going on. So you have SRI, you have Stanford Research, then you have SRI International, and that was in Palo Alto, California, which I was just in a couple of weeks ago and just drove through Palo Alto. But in 1972, the United States Army Surgeon General, through the Medical Intelligence Information Agency, together with the DIA, published studies of Soviet bloc work in psychoenergetics. And also in that same year, SRI, Stanford Research Institute, started research on psychoenergetics. So in 1972, Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, they did a series of investigations into the psychic phenomenon. And this was funded by the CIA and had consciousness researchers, Ingo Swann, Pat Price, Uri Geller. That's where Uri Geller came out of, but then they got rid of him because they thought that he was some sort of Mossad infiltrator. And this kicked off the syndicate document that I was mentioning earlier, where you can read through the syndicate document and you can see the work and the remote viewing that Ingo Swann and Pat Price was doing on this target in West Virginia, and it's really incredible. I really recommend, if people can find it, just to look through it, because they're giving like details, bro. Like it's like impossible for somebody in California to know exactly what's going on in West Virginia, what this
Right.
facility looks like. They had the wind speed.
Mm-hmm.
They knew how windy it was, what the temperature was, and all this is recorded in this document. So, Syndicate was the SRI project to determine if remote viewing uh, psychoenergetic phenomenon was real. Because if it was possible, then that the subjects that SRI were working with on like the psychoenergetic phenomenon, and if they could be using psychic powers to collect information, that could they be getting that information subliminally?
Mm.
Could How are they getting this information? So that was SRI's study, is to verify, are they really psychics, or are they really using their psychic abilities?
Dude,
How
I'm thinking about how you would try to dismiss that, because obviously, you wouldn't want to jump to any conclusions, and you'd want to try to, disprove this if there was any way possible, right? You said, like, are they subliminally getting, like, I can't think if somebody accurately is describing the wind speed on the other side of the country, among many other confirmable details, I wouldn't know how I couldn't figure out how to reach to dismiss that. I
Well,
really couldn't.
I think some things are like, oh, well, are they getting it from memory? Like, are they just making stuff up? But
Right. I mean, there is a chance, right? You make up some shit and it ends up being correct, but there's going to be a probability when it comes to how often, whatever
exactly.
your success ratio is, and that's going to really on your ability to dismiss that.
Yeah, and that was one of their tests. That's what they were doing. They were doing it, a series of tests, like all back to back, and to see how accurate the remote viewers actually were. And this gentleman named, uh, well, it's referred to in the documents as a businessman, but we now know his name was Pat Price. They just refer to him as Pat in the official documents.
Mm,
So when Pat Price got this coordinate that was given to him by Hal Putoff and Russell Targ, he remote viewed this area in West Virginia.
mm,
Now, it was supposed to be, uh, I think that it was either Hal Putoff or Russell Targ's like cabin
mm.
that was in West Virginia. So whenever they got the coordinate and Pat Price remote viewed it, he was describing this facility that had like radar systems, and it was a U.S. top secret uh, facility that
In this guy's
literally,
cabin.
well, not right over the hill of this guy's cabin,
Oh,
just right
over
on
the
the
hill.
backside of the hill from where this cabin was.
Yeah, chances are he doesn't go over the hill. He goes through it or under it or some. You know what I mean? There's a tunnel system. Get out of here, man. Yeah, I just want to say too on this topic of like, you're laying out how this thing was compelling, but still there's strenuous testing that has to be done to confirm whether or not this is an actual phenomenon, or is it just guessing, or is it something like that. And that's part of the reason that I find the whole telepathy tapes thing so underwhelming. It's overwhelming in the way that it connects to a much bigger picture, and there seems to be some obfuscation that's embedded within the telepathy tapes, to paint a narrative in a certain light. But the reality of the situation is, they have these children, they're displaying these things, and then they're like, yeah, anecdotally it seems to be working, but obviously this is groundbreaking and we have to do research. It's like the research already been done, dude. It's not groundbreaking. This has been happening for a long time. A lot of what these kids are describing in the telepathy tapes is remote viewing, because it's not just telepathy. It's interesting they called it telepathy tapes, because um some of these children are describing how they can be absolutely anywhere they want to be, which is, that's remote viewing in my opinion. But it's just really funny that the way that the public is receiving this is, it's groundbreaking, it's a new development, and we got to study this ASAP. But what you're telling me, Ryder, is that these breakthroughs have been happening for a long time, and there are governing bodies and there are intelligence agencies and military operations that have a vested interest in finding out whether or not
Well,
this phenomenon is real.
we also had some weird evidence come to us about these tapes and these children with the idea of the hill that they're meeting on this hill.
It's the hill
So
behind this dude's
so yeah,
house.
it's that hill. Yeah, on the other side of it is a government agency. Somebody just said that their nonverbal autistic kid, I guess, was they were watching our episode with this woman named Fringe, who's an abductee, and we kind of touched on this. And a listener's nonverbal autistic kid reported to her that her kid then told her that, yeah, he's been to the hill, and she says, "Where is it?" And the kid just said Utah.
Yeah, yeah. So she's listening to our episode. She turns to her own autistic child and says, "Have you ever been to the hill?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." And then she goes, "Where is it?" And this kid just says, "Utah." And Utah is fascinating to me because of all the like electromagnetic disturbances there. I think that plays with frequencies in a huge way that suggests that there's something in the geography of Utah specifically that is like thinning the veil. Frequencies and entities are coming in and out. Um, and of all places for
Yeah, like
this
the
hill to
Skinwalker
be,
Ranch,
yeah, Skinwalker
the
Ranch.
Proving Grounds, things like that. So I don't know where to put that. It's just something that we've
It's fun,
gotten, but
it's fascinating, and of course, if you look into Utah, there are 2 major military bases, I forget what they are, so it's like there's military bases, there's national forests, and there's Skinwalker Ranch, so there's plenty of places, in Utah where this could be happening, but yeah, just a strange aside is all.
Well, also Utah was one of the first states to do these like wilderness retreats for like troubled teens.
mm,
Oh, dude, that's nefarious. Troubled teens, wilderness getaways for troubled teens. Man, I wonder how many of those troubled teens went MIA.
Yeah, that's a that was a really big issue with Utah, and they're still doing them to this very day. Like there's still things like the behavioral treatment of like troubled teens is like a huge industry.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
really
because
big
those
industry.
troubled teens have, pestered and
yeah,
upset their parents to no end. If they went missing, some of those parents would breathe a sigh of
they
relief.
said it
Really
started in the '60s, the starting with initiatives like those at the Brigham Young University in the 1960s. The Mormon connection is also
fascinating.
quite shady.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting
These
stuff.
Mormons. What are you Mormons up to out there? Which
And then
fucking
that turned into like facilities, right? Like
yeah.
after it became like this wilderness retreat thing where they would have these kids, these troubled teens hiking
Mhm.
for the entire summer in the mountains of Utah. Then it turned into like a facility where they would be abducted in the
Mhm.
middle of the night. Like their parents would pay this company to come to their house in the middle of the night,
Yeah, yeah, and,
up
like,
them,
bum rush 'em.
put them in a blacked out van and
Yep.
drive them to this freaking facility.
Imagine that. Imagine
Behavioral
and some
mental
of those
health
kids, I'm
facility.
sure they experimented on. So imagine never knowing, like, you thought it was a
Scared
tricky thing you
straight.
were gonna do to your kid. You're gonna show them what it's like, have these motherfuckers show up in the middle of the night, and then you effectively just trafficked your child. I was watching Stranger Things season 1 again. It's honestly a tremendous show.
It is.
And
I love Stranger Things. So
it's
good.
really great, man, especially that first season. And it had been so long since I watched it. I was floored with how transparent they are in that first season where they're telling you this MK Ultra, base dissociative disorders, like all this crazy crap. They're just saying it. They're telling you that's where 11 comes from is a MK Ultra breakaway branch essentially. And that her
And that's what
father.
unlocked their abilities.
Yes, that's honestly, I made a tweet the other day. It fell on deaf ears. Wasn't the banger that I thought it was, but I just said
Many
We
such
all
dis.
been there.
Well,
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, it happens constantly. I said disassociation by way of sensory deprivation. That's kind of how you can summarize this whole thing. And that sensory deprivation manifests as multiple things, right? Because in Stranger Things, 11 is creating a float tank. So that's a sensory deprivation tank. But then on the other side of it, another form of sensory deprivation is where you deprive children of their own autonomy and connection to their physical body, by way of inoculation or some like that. and then even in the let's say the UFO phenomenon, I think there is a huge motivation to disassociate when you're taken or perceivably taken by entities. It causes it splits the mind,
They
because
even
you're
like,
dealing with what's up.
check this out. This is
Oh, what do
what's
you
going
got?
on at Dr. Phil's ranch.
Yo, Dr. Phil, by the way, did that to Catch Me Outside girl.
This is what I'm
Like,
reading right now. This
yeah,
is a
whisked her away and took her to a facility where they
oh,
abused her, and she actually took
it's
up
called
arms against that facility.
Turnabout Ranch in Utah. It's a facility that
Oh,
There it is.
we're talking about. It's for
There
troubled
it
teens.
is. Yep.
Yeah,
holy
and so they're claiming physical, emotional, and sexual abuse at the ranch. They
yeah,
accused him, and
yeah.
it seemed like he just said that he's negligent of like knowing. And then there was a murder in 2016 as well. Damn, man, this is a
2016. That's what that. What's that girl's name? The Catch Me Outside girl. Well,
bad baby, right?
that
Yeah.
baby. That's right. That kid. Nobody listens to her because she's out of her mind. Because she thinks she's black or whatever the case is. But she got taken to that facility, and then when she came out, she dedicated a lot of time and resources to try, like, effectively whistleblowing on that facility, and saying that there was all kinds of abuse and that she was abused there and that they're just doing this, that it's a
It's a
rotating or a
perpetual thing. Yeah, Paris
yes,
Hilton went through the same exact thing. Paris
that's right.
Hilton,
Something's
That's
going
right.
on in Utah.
Some is going on in Utah. That's fascinating because if
Provo
there
Canyon, bro. That's where Paris Hilton went to. Was Provo Canyon,
is that in Utah as well.
teen behavioral facility. I think that Provo Canyon's in might be in Arizona. It's either in Arizona or
Yeah, but that's
Utah.
like
But
very much the
the,
same place.
yeah, it's the exact same type of facility,
And they're
right?
right next
So
to each other, right? Arizona and Utah. I'm
yeah,
geographically retarded, but I'm pretty sure I drove through both of them when I went to Vegas. So
Oh no,
they're
it's in
right there.
Utah. Provo Canyon School is
Provo
in
Canyon is
Utah.
in Utah. There it
Fuck!
Both
is.
What
in
the fuck
Utah.
is going on in Utah?
I like these episodes where we start to connect dots like
Oh, we're
IRL.
so dumb, and then with somehow though, every once in a while we're like, "This makes sense." Oh, that's so cool, man. That's so cool. As these
Weird.
kids are getting,
Yeah,
this is
super
so cool.
cool.
Good God, man. Yeah,
But
Utah.
it doesn't help them at all. It's like, and the problem is that the parents that send these kids to these teen behavioral places, a lot of them are not bad kids.
No, yeah. Well,
That's
Bad Baby
that's
was
the
bad.
issue. That's the problem with the whole thing. Like any parent that sends their kid to one of these facilities, full damn well knowing exactly what it is, like
Mhm.
y- they're probably not that bad of a kid. And that's the and whenever they get in there, dude, they're freaking hit with all this like mind control programming.
Yeah.
Like they're taught to be a certain way. They all have to dress the same. They all wear a uniform.
They're trying to break you.
They're trying to literally break you down.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
but it never works. It just makes them 100 times worse. And Paris Hilton was lucky because her her family owns all the Hilton hotels. So she was already rich and she was like already famous. So she was able to escape that. But many of them that have been through these programs, uh, their lives do not get better. They often get worse. And
Dude,
I think
I'm
that these types of facilities are what some of the secret space program people have been through. And they've covered up that of going through one of these teen health facilities by thinking that they were in some sort of top secret government, which it was a government funded facility. Normally a lot of these are government funded facilities, right?
mhm, yeah.
And and they've replaced that with some fantasy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
that's actually kind of natural to do. Create
Yeah.
some kind of a story to block out this time frame.
Yeah.
That's dark, dude.
Yeah, look into WASP programs. That's what they are. It's like this curriculum that a lot of these behavioral teen health facilities are. Is called WASP programs. But I actually ran into a girl that went to one of these in Utah, but I was not familiar with it at the time. I worked in a behavioral health, alcohol, and drug treatment center for around 5 years. and I had ran into her. She was like really young. She had just like turned 18, and she was showing me photos of this facility that she was at in Utah. And like she was like telling me all the stuff, and it wasn't registering with me at the time because
Right.
when you're dealing with people that are drug and alcohol people, like you don't know exactly what is true, what's not true, or they're just making stuff up. But she was showing me the photos of her in this facility and all the things that that they were doing to her. And
And what were they doing to her?
I didn't even think of that until I had gone down this huge rabbit hole, and then I watched a few documentaries on it. There's a documentary on Netflix called Camp Hell, which is all about the Utah
Yes.
teen behavioral stuff.
I didn't is that the one that the Catch Me Outside girl had something to do with, or no? Because I
This
do
was back in
remember.
like 2010, I think
Oh, so
the
no, it wouldn't have
documentary
been
was
back
made.
then.
Yeah,
I
You know,
wonder how many of these treatment centers are in Utah.
I was gonna say, Ryder, I'm glad that you actually worked in the field because it's come to my attention that you have to actually visit a place to be able to even talk about it. So like,
that's right.
I'm
Yeah,
glad that you've hands-on experience. Otherwise, how the would we know anything?
Right.
You've got to.
exactly. Uh, You just can't talk about things in places that you've never been, dude.
I'm getting at least 6 here, and I don't know if that's a lot, but we have Sunrise Treatment Center, Youth Care Treatment Center, Elevations RTC, New Haven Residential Treatment Center, Embark Behavioral Health, Solstice West, and Copper Hills Youth Center. Those are all. It looks like they're all in Utah. I
Wait,
wonder if there's any
David, we're
more.
we're getting a little off subject here,
Sorry,
though.
yeah. That I
Yeah, yeah.
just was
Like,
like, you know how it is. We step in something
we
fascinating, and I'm fucking like,
fluctuated wildly from whatever you were
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Okay, so where was I at with the the Ingo Swan and the Pat Price document? So Pat Price got this coordinate for the base. Well, it wasn't the base; it was the cabin, and then he remote viewed the base, and no one knew about this base. It was a top secret base. So then that coordinate was also given to Ingo Swan for him to verify Pat Price's remote viewing of this top secret military base in West Virginia.
Mhm.
So Howell put off and Russell Targ asked him to view this location again to see if they can get an inside look for documents to try and obtain code word information, right? With his psychic abilities, with his mind. Okay, so Pat Price went back to the facility, remote viewed the facility again. And this is the mind blowing thing of this entire thing. This document is literally insane, which is also talked about on Psychic Spies, the documentary by Russell Targ on remote viewing. But it's just so fascinating. So Pat Price remote viewed the location again. He literally got inside of the facility with his mind and was looking around. And he saw a desk that had top secret information papers on the desk.
Hmm.
And he could read the words that was on the paper. It was words like fly trap, mine run. There was a file cabinet on the wall that was labeled Operation Pool. Folders on the inside of the cabinet labeled cue ball, 14 ball, 8 ball. It was rack up. It was all code words that was based on the game Pool.
Hmm.
Okay, and he said that the site resembled a name vaguely like Hayfork or Haystack, which is the code name for the facility. He even got the names of the generals at the facility.
Hmm.
Uh, Colonel R.J. Hamlin, Major George R. Nash, like all these people. And this got the attention of the DIA and Army intelligence, right? Like this dude is using psychic abilities to get all this top secret information that nobody is supposed to know about, right? And this got all of the intelligence people, all the military community, all really interested in this phenomenon. I'm sure it scared the shit out of them, right? I personally believe,
Yeah.
because if someone can get access to top secret military information, like classified information, with their minds, okay, then could our enemies do
Oh
that
yeah.
exact same
The
thing.
jig is up, right? Well, that's what's kind of fascinating to me is that we built all this apparatus of secrecy and government buildings and facilities and the Pentagon houses so many national security secrets and things like that. But this psychic phenomenon I still do think is one that is natural to a degree and then can be trained even further. And I don't know, it's like how long have we existed on this planet? It almost feels like this should have been something that we knew we were capable of. And if we've always known that, like let's say as a race, we just always knew like, yeah, motherfuckers are gonna pop in and, kind of flip through your secret cabinet with their brain. Then we would have gone about a totally different way of maintaining secrets, a totally different way of housing information. We probably wouldn't have drawers and file cabinets, or at least they wouldn't have glass on them. You know what I mean? Like it's fascinating that this thing seems to have so much veracity. It seems very real to me, and
And I
and
think that they've
certainly,
done that. I think that they have, well, I mean, it's been reported, it's not in any official documentation, but it's been reported that there are buildings that the government has that they've
put
blocked
blankets all over
from, yes,
all over everything. Yeah, I'd
yes.
fucking be laying blankets and shit over all my desks. I wonder if that's what they've done because, like I said,
Well,
if
they've made some sort of special wall, apparently.
oh, that's interesting, and they can't see
Or
through it.
like a
Yeah,
Faraday cage sort of
yeah,
thing.
That's interesting.
some sort of something. Again, that's just it's been reported that that's what's going on.
I wonder
That
I
if like a
wonder.
Faraday would work because I often think about when people are remote viewing, if you could perceive them, what would you perceive them as? Some people are like, you might see them as orbs, like ghost hunters and shit like that. But it seems to me like we would exist as frequency. Like the best way you could detect if somebody was viewing you, you would have a better shot of detecting a frequency that was
Do
abnormal.
you remember the material that Fringe said she put a helmet over her head when she was going to
Shit.
sleep because these abductions were happening so frequently to her, and not just abductions but like weird visitations, and she got a sense that they were physical, like a lot more
I
physical
forgot
than
what
you'd
the hell
think.
she said it was, that it
But
was
she
made
put
out of.
some sort of helmet on, like a this like magneto helmet, and it's made of this like I kind of want to say that it's like that it's not though. Ian Carlson's always talking about
Oh, like damn, what the hell is he
uh,
always talking about?
like
yeah.
a tinfoil hat.
Well, I mean,
No,
effectively, yeah, but Ian Crossan is constantly obsessed with,
this type of material is like it's like a rubber, but it does specialize in kind of like weird electromagnetic signals. She had it on. She actually realized that she woke up with it tampered because it was put back on her head slightly
backwards.
different. Yeah,
It was
like
backwards, yeah.
backwards. So I wonder if they're using a similar technology or where she would even get the inclination to use that kind of thing to
I
stop.
don't know, but it would be
It's weird.
fascinating to find out that the way that they're blocking remote viewers from seeing their room is by covering it in, like, Faraday material or something like that. That would be, like, really big confirmation just once again, in the frequency energetic, division of this conversation.
Well, when you look at the X-Men, you just brought up Magneto. I mean, that was his whole thing, right? He would put the helmet on to keep Professor Xavier from getting inside of his head and
Yep.
influencing him to do stuff,
Yeah. Yep, 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 yep. I
which is
mean
the known remote viewing technique. Like,
mm, yeah,
people
and then
can
if
get
y
into people's heads and influence them to do things that they would otherwise never do. That's what
which is crazy
Russia
because
was doing. Russia had the very first program. Now, this isn't in official documents either. This is something completely different. Now, Lynn Buchanan, which is verified was in the Stargate program. He was one of the top remote viewers in the Stargate program. He's the one that the entire movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, is based off of.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
Lynn Buchanan, okay? He was the last time that he was on my show. We were talking about remote influencing and this perfect site integration, where the bilocation aspect, where you can
Mhm.
remove you and influence their environment, which sounds like what these kids are doing in the telepathy tapes. They're doing
Yeah.
a form of bilocation, right?
Mhm.
Which is called perfect site integration, which is a really advanced form of remote viewing created by Ingo Swann. So Lynn was telling me that the Russians were the first to create a remote influencing program.
Hmm.
So they would essentially get into targets' heads,
Yeah.
plant thoughts, plant ideas, to try and influence them to do something that they normally wouldn't do.
Which is what we've been saying these entities are doing for the longest time, right? And we're not just saying that. We always go back to the muse kind of a narrative where it's like great works that came out of Greece were often attributed to the muses, and great works of art or things like that. And people still maintain that the inspiration for their works. Oh, it came to me in a dream. It came to me in a fugue state. It came to me in a state when I was, under the influence of this drug or that drug. So it seems like we're just taking a play out of the book of these spiritual entities who nudge us this way and that way. Because we talk about it on the show. It's like so many of your ideas aren't your own. They seem to be intrusive. They pop up in your head, especially the ones that you would call inspired. So something else outside of you is potentially funneling these thoughts and ideas into your head, and it feels like some part of our government was like, oh, we could do that too, baby.
Oh, the material is called Velostat.
Velostat.
Yeah, or Linkstat, Linqstat. It's a conductive plastic material. And
Interesting.
yeah, so I wonder. The reason I was thinking of what they said here, graphene oxide is uh, it's infused with carbon black, and I guess it gives it this kind of like black sheen look to it. But she was
I guess
using it as like a weird helmet to.
and that's probably what gives it its conductivity, because plastic not is really kind of an insulator,
Right,
not a
right.
conductor. So it's interesting, a hybrid there. I wanted to ask you, Ryder, before you go any further. You've communicated with a lot of these people and you've looked into their stories, these remote viewers in particular. Um, we find that pretty often, if you find somebody who is involved in this situation and they are communing with different, let's just call them frequencies for now for this conversation. Um, every once in a while you'll find, and in their old age they lost their mind and became schizophrenic. How are these people faring, the remote viewers that you've looked into? Are they just like crushing now and they're having a good life, they're retired and everything's all good? Are they are some of them, have they lost their minds?
That's a really good question. All of them are doing great.
Huh.
Yeah, several of them also teach remote viewing courses. They train people on how to remote view, and a few of them, I'm not going to say who, but I know personally, the government comes
Yeah,
to remote view stuff for them on the side.
like a
So they're
consultant.
essentially exactly yes.
Yeah. Huh. That is fascinating. That is fascinating. The reason that I ask is because um, I am wondering of the morality of this. It seems to be a natural phenomenon. It seems to be something that you can train. It seems to be dangerous, but no more dangerous or less dangerous than just going into any uncharted territory that you're not familiar with. What exists here, what doesn't. Um, and to me, it would be a tremendous red flag if all of them were, drooling and full of dementia and plagued by disembodied voices. I would go, oh, okay, well, that's a good indicator not to do this, but doesn't seem to be the case.
No, it's not the case. They're all highly successful. One of them is still a contractor for the government and runs his own business, completely separate from remote viewing. He
Mm,
does things for the army. He has like a medical supply for the military, like on his own, like separate thing. So they're all highly successful. They all, do their own thing. So but I think that that's like a thing for people that like just like already have like problems and like issues, and then they think
yeah.
that they're remote viewing, and then they're not really remote viewing, so then they kind of lose their mind
Mm.
within that a little bit.
I think also if you start at a bad place and you're susceptible to that sort of thing, um, so I do maintain, I believe that there are entities that inhabit these spiritual realms, and the negative ones, they feed off of us like an energetic exchange. They seem to eat negative energy. So I suppose it might be reasonable to assume if you went into that realm as a beacon of anger, depression, sadness, anxiety, all that, then you might attract something.
But these people are not, they're not going into another realm. Like astral projection and remote viewing are
Well, those are two different things, right?
very
Astral
different.
projecting is
Yeah.
an astral realm. Remote viewing is viewing this realm, or
Right.
apparently Mars. I don't know, which I guess is this realm. But we had just had that news article come out from like the New York Times, where the New York Times is like, oh, they used remote viewers to remote view the surface of Mars. Seems that there was what did they say? Like there was a war there, or there was, and it was like, what? What am I supposed
No,
to do
no,
with
no.
this, New York Times? How dare you? That's a
Yeah, they
weird
said that
thing to say.
there was a nuclear war or whatever that
What?
wiped out the civilization on Mars. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
and
that
I don't know
article
why
too.
that makes me. I want to go you, New York Times, because in the mundanity of everything, they're like, Donald Trump, dictator, or friend or foe, and then as an aside, they're like, by the way, we remote viewed the surface of Mars. Seems there was a nuclear war. Anyway, back to the stock markets, and it's like, what? How dare you? What did you
Back to the
just do?
tariffs, bro. We got to talk about them tariffs.
Yeah, I just think because it's like I'm not the absorber of the New York Times, but you just gave normies the weirdest in the world. Like that's really strange article to give to normal people, and then to just go anyway, and then move on from it. Very strange. What do you think that they remote viewed the surface of Mars?
Well, I'd like to know who remote viewed the surface of Mars, but there were people within the Stargate program, which we haven't even got into all the name changes. We've barely even got into exactly what's going on here. But there was a gentleman, Skip Atwater, that was within the program that would have some of the remote viewers like remote viewing like random stuff, like the moon,
Really?
Mars,
I mean, why not? Right?
Saturn, like all this stuff. But a lot of the remote viewers within the program don't put any credence in those remote viewings because they can't be verified. Like you can't verify what you've seen on Mars because you
Right.
can't
Yeah.
go to Mars. Okay, so
Right.
they kind of just like throw that stuff out. They're like, okay, well, yeah, maybe, who knows, but is it verifiable? No, it's not.
Hmm, interesting. All right. All right.
So in 1976, the Missile Intelligence Agency they started expressing interest in the U.S.'s like replication of like what the Soviet psychoenergetic experiments, right? Because this is another way that they use this as an excuse to start up their own program. So they're like, okay, well, if this is real, we know that it's real because we've had these subjects at SRI that has been able to repeat this several times. We believe that the Soviets are also doing this. So we have to start up our own program.
Hmm.
And during that same time, the Army was involved in the investigation of remote viewing concepts with SRI as well. So the funding is coming from several different locations. It's coming from the CIA, it's coming from the Army, it's coming from the Air Force. Air Force picked up where the CIA left off. The CIA stopped funding in 75. Then the Air Force came in, started funding SRI as well. And then the CIA came back and started funding SRI again. It's the funding is coming from all over the place.
Hmm.
So in 1977, U.S. Army intelligence established a project under the Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff for Human Intelligence and implemented a program named Gondola Wish. So
Gondola Witch.
Gondola Wish. This was the first name of this program.
Hmm.
But if you got on Wikipedia, well, it's even difficult to find anything online about this stuff because now whenever you type in Stargate program, you're going to get Trump's AI
Yes.
Stargate program, right?
Right. Which could well also be part of like, kind of muddying the waters.
Yeah, so the Gondola Wish program was started in 1977, and by 1978, Army intelligence concluded that there was sufficient evidence to warrant a an official program. So this was like a research program to explore the intelligence collection of psychoenergetics. The Army then canceled the Gondola Wish program. They placed a complete security envelope over the entire like Army's interest in psychoenergetics, and then they implemented a new program directed at intelligence collection on foreign assets using remote viewing. And that project was called Grill Flame, to use these psychoenergetic phenomenon as a data collection for intelligence information, right? So by 1978, INSCOM, the United States Army Intelligence and Security Command, had the personnel that they wanted in this program, and the training was initiated. And the person that trained those Army personnel, that was Ingo Swann from SRI, trained the Army personnel on how to remote view. Now, there's a lot of discrepancy between if SRI ever walked into the doors at Fort Meade or if the Army personnel went to SRI to train. Some people say that Russell Targ, Hal Putoff, none of the remote viewer subjects from SRI ever walked through the doors at Fort Meade. So that would mean that they had to have gone to SRI International in Palo Alto to be trained by Ingo Swann.
This was 77, you said?
This was 78.
78.
After they had shut down the Gondola Wish program, they opened up this other one called Grill Flame.
It seems like a lot of it is, I mean, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's just like shutting one door, opening another one, moving from one program to the next. But the through line is the same study. But what it does is it gives us this almost like fog of war situation where it's so confusing. Like if somebody could say, oh no, well, they stopped that program, back in 77. And you go like, oh yeah, technically they did stop that program. But if you didn't know that they just started up another one of a very similar nature, pursuing the same and just called it something different, and they did it the next year, it's like, yeah, it never stopped.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, plausible. Exactly.
And the issue that they ran into was, would the information obtained from the remote viewing psychics, would it be accurate and would it be reasonable? And would the intelligence community accept the information? So on September 4th, 1979, our Army ACSI tasked INSCOM, Army Intelligence, to locate a missing Navy aircraft. This was the first operational Grill Flame remote viewing session. And the remote viewer located the missing aircraft within 15 miles of where it was downed.
Where was it down?
Based off of those results, INSCOM was then tasked to work on additional targets, and this forced the hand of ACSI to head into full swing operations and skip over a lot of the training phases of the unit from Ingo Swann. So they were essentially just like, okay, well, you made it to phase 2 or phase 3 of this program. You're on your own now. When there's a lot more levels to this. But this was also, there's contention with this one as well, because some people say that it was Gary Langford at SRI that located the missing downed airplane, and then Del Graff, which had a remote viewing unit at I think it was Fort Detrick, Maryland, that by a lady named Rosemary Smith, that supposedly found the missing aircraft.
So
you have a three
way
remote
viewer, right?
Well, she was a remote viewer. Gary Langford was also a remote viewer, and then they also had this remote viewing operation.
So
but
what do you think
I 100% believe that it was Rosemary Smith that found the airplane, but they had to say that it was this Grill Flame unit that found the airplane to continue to get funded to keep the program afloat.
Right.
Because if they didn't have any actionable data, that nobody got anything right, then they're going to have to shut down the entire program because it's useless. So they took the information from Rosemary Smith with Del Graff's small remote viewing Air Force unit, and then they took credit for it Army intelligence took credit for finding the down missing airplane. Now, this correlates with what Jimmy Carter was saying in '95, but she said it earlier than that as well. But the only one that you can find is from 1995, where he's doing like an interview, and he's talking about how they found a downed Russian airplane that that a psychic from California found. Hold on, let me see if I can actually find this clip, because I tried to look for it before and I can't find it now, but I made a short of it on my YouTube channel. But I think that it's important to hear him talk about it, because it's really fascinating. I tried to, because I was doing another short on it, because I just had Dale Graff back on my channel recently, and I was trying to look for it again, and I could not find it online anywhere. And so then I just had to rip down the other short and then overlay the audio onto a new video.
Ryder, when you talk to these people, have I have to imagine you've asked, have they ever explained in any detail what the process is like, what it looks like, what it feels like to remote view a thing?
Yeah, they all say that they get the information, like the information just comes to them, like it comes to them in their mind, and then they like write it down. Like I don't think it's like it's even like a visual thing. It's like based off of feeling.
Interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
say that a lot whenever it comes into like things that are unexplainable. You might call them like supernatural or spiritual. That your impression, it counts for a lot in these encounters and these experiences. So that's fascinating to hear that it almost sounds like that's primarily what they're using is impressions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I got the
You want to bring this up
video
here?
shared.
Let's do that.
Okay, so this is Jimmy Carter talking about the psychics being used to find the missing downed airplane.
The only strange and inexplicable event that has been discussed publicly is that one time we had a small plane go down somewhere in Africa. We needed very much to find out where that plane had crashed, and we were not able to find it by surveillance from our satellites. So the director of the CIA, he was also director of all the intelligence agencies, heard about a woman in California that was a medium. And he contacted her, and she gave him the latitude and longitude of the plane's whereabouts. And the next time one of our space satellites went over that area, we located the plane where she said it was.
Wow.
And that wasn't, but he got a lot of things wrong within that. It wasn't in Africa. It was Russian. It wasn't a lady from California. It was a remote viewer named Rosemary Smith.
Jimmy Carter's
But
just like me.
yeah, he did a lot of misdirection with that, as to not reveal, because this was in
Mm.
'95, so it was like right around the time that the documents were actually starting to be, well, they hadn't been released yet. I don't think that they were released until 2003, but '95 is when the program completely ended. So it was still a top secret classified program that very few people knew about. I mean, even the people on the base at Fort Meade didn't really even know exactly what was going on, right? So
Did you know that Jimmy Carter was a peanut farmer? Hashtag Jimmy Carter facts. It was a throwback.
Shout out Jimmy Carter. Shout out
Shout out Jimmy
Peanuts.
Carter.
no, I
Sorry,
didn't know that.
continue.
Peanut farmer, baby.
You didn't know that? Come on. Jimmy Carter was a peanut
Peanut
farmer. That's not the only thing I
peanut
know about him.
butter.
We did
That,
a
and he's
live
fucking super old.
episode. We did an episode with Elijah Schaefer in his studio, and I guess it was like Jimmy Carter Day or something. I was just hitting him every like 3 minutes with Jimmy Carter facts, and he was like,
Carter
"Fuck,
facts,
man."
baby. Got a
Yeah,
lot of them.
Jimmy Carter facts.
Didn't
A lot of
Jimmy
weird
Carter have
stuff.
a UFO story as well?
He
Yeah, I'm
did.
pretty sure he
Yeah.
does. Yeah,
UFO
Jimmy Carter's got a
encounter.
yeah,
Weird guy.
UFO encounter. Very strange. Very strange. This, but outside of, I mean, you hear that when it comes to like the FBI or unsolved cases, things like that. Sometimes in desperation, they will, refer to a clairvoyant, a psychic, and I don't know if it's sensationalized how much the success ratio of that actually is. There are, I imagine, some psychics that are used more than others. If they display some sort of competency or success ratio. But I don't know. It always is a little frustrating to me when you see how dismissed this phenomenon is of like clairvoyance or remote viewing or any of these things, and then you find out that at the highest levels they will often end up using these people, and while we grovel down here in the trash and we go, it's not real, that shit's not real, that's a con man, this and that, and I'm like, maybe, I'm sure there's a lot of con people, but then there are stories like that that you just go, well, what do you do with that, dummy? I don't know what to do with that. Feels pretty
Yeah,
real.
I've gotten into several arguments with the people that have no idea what they're talking about because they haven't read all this stuff and they haven't talked with the actual, people that were involved in these programs. And whenever you talk with them and you've done all this research and you've read the documents, you have no other conclusion to come to than
Right.
that this is real.
Yeah, it's like if
That
unless
this
they're
can
lying.
be done.
Yeah, unless they're lying, the information that I'm looking at here, if this is real, then it seems to be that this phenomenon is real. Ryder, have you tried it? Have you tried it? Tell me the truth, Ryder.
No, I have not tried it.
Why haven't you tried it?
Because it's like I said, it's a very sophisticated thing, and like you can't just give yourself your own target. So what would I even really be doing?
I'll give you a
If I
target.
were
I don't know what
give
I'll
me that
have you view,
target.
but I'll find a target for you, dude. One of us has to try. Somebody has to try it. All right, that's what I'm saying. Look, if you're, I wouldn't recommend it to any of the fans because I just don't know what you're doing. But if you're gonna do it anyway, reach out to me. I'll give you a target. I don't know how to do that, but we'll figure it out and we'll have you remote view something. Actually, if you sign up for the $33 tier on Patreon, you get telepathy. So that comes with it. And apparently, just do it that way, and it'll be fine. I find that fascinating though because I'm the same way. You're doing it because you're like, I have to do it legitimately, and I don't know if I can find a legitimate source of it. I'm not doing it because I'm like, I don't know the implications of it, and I would hate to just, as somebody who's been inundated for a lot of my life with weird things, just weird things, entities and sleep paralysis and stupid. I don't really want to open up that door because I don't know where these things that I see every once in a while live. They might live there. And if I do that, then am I going to see them more? Because I don't like them. They're pretty exhausting. I hope they stay away. So we just need somebody. I think Top would probably be a good candidate to start practicing remote viewing, and then we can give him targets, and then Top could go and he can go and see things. He can go back to the city, or he can go to Utah, maybe see what's going on in Utah. Maybe that's what we have to do. We're never going to figure it out. We're never going to raise the funds to have an NDS trip to Utah to go and bust one of these facilities. We just have to we have to learn how to remote view. We got to go to Utah. We got to see what's going on. Are we okay with that, Top? Is
That
that what we're
sounds like a
doing?
plan. Let's do that. I'm behind that.
Let's go.
I'm pretty sure that's why they have like those cryptids around these government facilities. These dudes are guarding telepathically, psychically. I'm not trying to run into like a dog man or some like, I don't know,
Well, that's the
something
thing.
with a dolphin head.
Have you ever heard
Fuck me
that,
up.
Ryder, that some people will go into this like remote viewing or astral projection, and there seems to be operatives in that realm that are like, no, don't come here. Have you ever heard those stories?
I've heard that. I don't know how much truth there is to that because that could be just people making stuff up so that
Yes.
they don't have to because they really didn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm the one who
So
made that up.
they don't have the information, so they can't give out the information. So then they make the excuse
Ah,
that there were these psychic agents there that was blocking them from the information.
yes. But
But it's not
also,
out of the realm of the possibility. I mean, if they got freaking rooms and entire buildings that are essentially remote viewing proof, like why wouldn't you have some kind of other kind of psychic defense from it? But I don't know how much like are we really that worried about remote viewers like
seems
doing
like we
this
should
now?
be. Like, it seems like if this is real, we should be really, really afraid. You know what it is too? It's like it's the government. So if there is, government jobs usually pay pretty well. But if there is a department of, astral security, they probably get paid like $13 an hour, and then that just like, this is not worth it. I got to work 60
Below
hours a
when a
week in the
minimum
astral
wage.
realm to try to make ends meet.
That's
Your
actually a
wife's like,
really
you're
good
never
gig.
around.
Like, if they can't
You're
even
always at
prove that
work.
you're doing anything, you could just
That's
like
it.
not even be doing anything and
Like, I don't
collect
know
them
where
a
these
pay.
checks keep coming from. All I know is you go in the bedroom and you lock yourself in the bedroom for a 12-hour shift, and then all of a sudden a check shows up. I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. It's gonna be a really hard gig to maintain. But
Sign me
I
up for
think that
that.
if if there's this much evidence, I don't even call it anecdotal evidence because it's not anecdotal. I mean, we're talking about government documents, and I don't know how much more official someone needs the evidence to be in order to entertain this line of thought. But I imagine that foreign governments, very much the same way that like we were in a race with Russia and China to get to the moon, and then people speculate that that's why we have faked footage. It was like as a contingency, if we didn't make it to the moon before Russia did, we could at least premiere this faked footage and be like, yeah, we did. You and do what you want with that information. I don't know how I feel about that, but I can get behind the sentiment at least that there would be a big competition between us and other major world players. So if China and Russia caught wind that we were employing to whatever degree of success remote viewers, I'd be damn sure they would do all the same. So if we have it now, like China's got it, Russia's got it, you name them, they've got remote viewers. Why wouldn't you? I just can't say. I can't see looking at this and then not doing that.
Yeah, and the United States has always been at odds with Russia, like since after World War II. Like Russia has always kind of been that silent enemy of the United States. But Russia actually, I don't want to get too far off topic, but Russia actually got more after World War II than the United States got.
Damn it.
Interesting. That's interesting.
And our
there was a Russian equivalent of Project Paperclip that the United States got, and Russia got like double the amount.
This seems like it all comes from the too, because I was listening to something and they were talking about the psychic connection between twins. I forgot why that came up. I think I was listening to an episode of Tinfoil Hat yesterday, and that came up. Might have been that or the confessionals, but either way, this notion of the psychic connection between twins came up, and it reminded me of Mengele's obsession with twins. During the height of the Nazi regime, and I know that a lot of our data that created the MK Ultra program came out of Nazi Germany, and I just it all feels like it all comes from them. Like whatever Hitler was doing, seemed like he really discovered some real serious in the way of like psychic phenomenon, and that birthed. It was like planting a seed in our own culture, and it blew up into something massive that we're now seeing today at this huge scale.
Yeah, this is the Russian version of Project Paperclip, the secret Soviet operation in which more than 2,500 German specialty scientists, engineers, and technicians who worked in several areas from companies and institutions relevant to military and economic policy in the Soviet occupation zone of Germany and Berlin, as well as around 4,000 more family members, totaling in 6,000 people were taken from former
6,000
Nazi
people?
Germany as war reparations to the Soviet Union.
Wow. That's a lot of folks. Damn,
Yeah.
dude. I wonder how much we got. I wouldn't
The
have guessed it.
numbers, well, the official numbers, which we don't really know. People claim that we got upwards of like 20,000, but official numbers is like much lower. I think that it was like 1,500 was the Project Paperclip. Yeah, it was 1,600. Sorry, I was off by 100. So it was 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians.
Yeah, that's way less.
So Russia officially, now this is official. Now this is just like, we don't know all the other stuff, but officially Russia got, well, officially double the amount of engineers, scientists, and technicians.
I would say that they may have gotten volume, but we got quality, because our Nazi scientists that we stole were the best Nazi scientists, because we have a better propaganda machine. We have a better space program. We had the best. Our MK Ultra program, much more effective than the Russians. I would say that we are as a people better propagandized than the Russian people. So in your face Russia, it's called quantity over quality, or rather the other way around, quality over quantity.
Okay, so I want to rush through this this last part because
All right,
I
I'm
got
gonna
a
promise I'm gonna try not to derail you.
I got a show in 15 minutes on my channel, so
Gotcha.
I'm gonna run through this bad boy real quick. So in 1980, the Perry Memorandum came about, which cut the funding for psychoenergetics activities that didn't include intelligence applications efforts. So in 1981, a few months later, ACSI transferred Project Grill Flame to INSCOM, which is the United States Army Intelligence and Security Command. They combined their efforts, and this is another name change. They and this wasn't the only time the unit had been transferred or combined. So the DIA and Army Intelligence signed a joint Grill Flame to implement a 3-year long program. So the DIA's role in the joint operation was threat analysis, countermeasures, using established psychics through contracts with SRI, because they've been working with SRI since 73, right? So the Army's INSCOM role was to apply the remote viewing program, use assigned personnel, and to enhance capability. Now, remember in the beginning of this, whenever I said that everyone had their hands in the pot of this, well, this merging of the DIA and Army intelligence into one program also created this merging of two other groups. It formalized the cooperations among the Secretary of the Army, the Army General Counsel, and the Assistant Surgeon General for Medical R&D, and the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, NSA, CIA, and the Navy. But they were giving tasking to Army intelligence, right? So until 1982, the budget was cut to the program. They cut the funding to Grill Flame because they thought that the project had been double funded. It had been double budgeted because they were doing this cooperation between DIA and Army intelligence, and they thought that the funding was coming from both of them, right? And one was coming from Army intelligence, another was coming from DIA, when they were just both working together on it. But they let the DIA complete their 3rd year. So at the end of 1982, INSCOM, Army Intelligence, terminated their former involvement with Grill Flame and the DIA. So the Army splits from the DIA, and the Army opens up another program. See, this gets so crazy and so convoluted. It's going to be really great in documentary style format, because you'll be able to see the documents and get all the information and understand it, right? But Army Intelligence opened up another special access program called Center Lane. So in 1983, Dr. Richard, what is his name? Dr. Richard Rellinger or something like that. He signed a memorandum allowing the resources to be used to maintain the support of Army Center Lane program. So he revised the Perry Memorandum to cut the funding in 1980 with the funding by the security and investigative activities. So in 1983, the Army Remote Viewing Special Access Program, Center Lane, was decided again that it should be combined with DIA. So in 1984, it was decided that the Center Lane Special Access Program ran by the Army should be combined with DIA's Grill Flame unit again. So by 1985, the transfer from the Army Center Lane project, the Special Access Center Lane program, was then combined with DIA's Grill Flame program, and it became known as a DoD Special Access Program. And the funding was restored because it was a pure intelligence and data collection program. And then we got another name change. So that name was called Sunstreak. And that's where this document is talking about, that's out there now on the CIA's website, Operation Sunstreak. And if you read through that document, you'll see that everything that I'm saying up until this point is 100% real and legitimate. So Sunstreak was to undertake operational intelligence application using a aspect of psychoenergetics known as remote viewing. Now, it also states in this document not only the Soviet threat, like I stated earlier, but that that we need to collect intelligence data on foreign targets. So the program ran under Sunstreak until 91, and then it was changed to Stargate by Del Graff, which I've had on my show several times. He changed the name out of his own words because it felt like that Stargate described what they were doing better with like the human potential aspect of what they were doing. So in 95, the program was then to be transferred to the CIA from the DoD and DIA. CIA got their hands on it. They said that no intelligence data had ever been collected from the program, and they shut it down, which obviously isn't the case. If you if you read through these documents, you would know that that is 100% not factual. That they did get highly good intelligence data out of the program, and they turned out to be very accurate, but they shut it down anyway.
Hmm.
So
So what was the
yeah,
reason? Just that they thought that it was fruitless? That's why they allegedly shut it down?
well, I have a different theory on the reason why they shut it down. I think that they shut it down because, again, we're out of the realm of documents now. The documents are
Right.
over. This is my personal opinion and my personal thoughts. I think that the CIA terminated the Stargate program because they either already had a program that they were working with, or somebody else had a program, or they were going to start up a new program.
Hmm.
They were going to do something different. They found a different application for the remote viewing. It's not just collecting intelligence data anymore. It's something way more nefarious. And they can't take the people that was a part of the Stargate program into a new program.
Hmm.
What do you think about the new Stargate program? Is there any overlap, or like why even name it the same thing? It's, I mean, most of these names don't really correlate to the projects that they're actually doing, but I
Yeah,
just
what
found
was
it
the
kind
other
of
one?
weird.
Grill something?
Grill
Yeah.
Flame.
Grill Flame. Like, how does that even apply? Yeah, it seems like they just pick random names sometimes, but I don't know. What about this one? This new Project Stargate?
I don't know. It's interesting with the name. I mean, I think that it's some kind of obfuscation. Like they're trying to obfuscate, like for people trying to like look into the Stargate remote viewing
Hmm.
program. So they just named it Stargate. I mean, Stargate, it became like super popular. You have the Stargate TV show. You have
Yeah.
Stargate SG-1, like things like that, and it's impossible for Del Graff was just talking about this the last time that I had him on. He was like, it was impossible for these people to know about this program
Yeah.
when all these TV shows and all this stuff was, coming out. So
It's
I
like the
was like,
same thing if you want to try to find if Walt Disney is cryogenically frozen, all you're going to get is Disney's Frozen. You know what I mean? Like whether or
Yeah.
not that's true, I don't know. But I look at
and if
Project
you try and
Stargate.
look up Looking Glass technology too, you're going to get Alice in Wonderland through the
Yeah.
Looking Glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like there might be a connection just because through all of this research that is really parallel to yours, Ryder, we found that there is an implant aspect to it, whether it's a dental implant or maybe metal that settles in the brain through. But it seems to help the victim in this case tune into these frequencies. And if you look into Project Stargate, it's this unholy union of mRNA technology and AI, and who's leading the whole AI charge, but Elon, who wants to put something in your head. It's an implant, right? And so
You
I
guys
think
should
there is
watch
an overlap.
the new episode, the first episode of the new season of Black Mirror.
Oh, I heard that came out. That's an interesting thing to say. Why?
Have you
What have you
guys
heard?
seen Severance? The show on
No, I
Apple
heard it was
TV
good, but I
Plus,
haven't seen it.
Severance. Wild, wild. But the first episode of the new season of Black Mirror is essentially it has to do with like bees, and like this woman is a teacher. She's like teaching grade schoolers. She's talking about bees and how all the bees were replaced with like artificial robot bees, and
Wow. Okay.
then she would get these headaches and stuff, and then she got like a tumor or whatever, and then she went into a coma. And
Hmm.
then this doctor shows up at the hospital and is telling her husband that there's this new program out there to where we can put a chip inside of her brain, and it'll give her the ability to like be, but she's going to be connected to the servers, right? and the servers are only in this specific area. So if she goes out of bounds of this specific area, then she's going to slip back into the coma.
Whoa.
Right? So it's essentially like an internet thing. And she's like, oh, well, it's only $300 a month. Right. So he signs her up for it. She's okay. She's super tired and super sleepy. Right. But then, man, I don't want to ruin it all, but she essentially starts speaking ads. Like she just starts
shit, damn,
throwing out ads. She's like, "Oh yeah, get your lube from the lube center. That's 100 times better than any other lube." Like all this crazy shit. And then they go to the lady and was like, "What is going on?" Like she's just spitting out ads like every like 20, 30 minutes. And then the lady's like, "Oh well, you're on the base tier."
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah, dude. What if there's a free version of Neuralink and it's like, yeah, it's free. You can get it for free, but that's what's gonna happen to you.
It's
You'll
gonna be
out
running
hanging with your
ads
homies,
for that
and all of a sudden it's
Israeli.
fucking, have you tried Manscaped?
Running ads for the dildo.
My Patriot
Jewish
Supply.
dildo company.
My Patriot Supply. Oh, well, look. I know you got to fly, Ryder. It's refreshing to have somebody who actually has their handle on the information, who's spoken to these people, who has access to the documents, confirm a lot of what we've suspected, but refused to do any meaningful research on. So it's nice to have you on our show and to share this. But I know you got to fly, so let's bring this in for a landing, Ryder. Where can everybody find your work, including your documentaries?
Thanks for having me on, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. It was a wonderful conversation. I always love talking about this subject. It's very near and dear to my heart. And because I've looked into it, I've talked to the people like you were mentioning, I've read the documents. So it's, and I think it's really important to get the details of it in the history of the program and how it worked and all the name changes and all the different things and
The
where it
name
was
changes
funded.
were huge because that you run into that often. Oh, MK Ultra stopped, whatever year it supposedly stopped. It's like none of it stops. It just changes. They get rid of the old crew. They bring in a new crew. It's compartmentalized.
The
They
shell
switch
company.
names. It's a shell. Yeah, it's all of it is just obfuscation. That's really what's happening here at the end of the day. And so that was a hugely important, I think.
Thank you guys very much. You can find me on Raised by Giants on YouTube. I'm getting ready to go live here in like 5 minutes on my channel and any and all podcast platforms. And yeah, we're going to be talking about Trump's tariffs today because freaking everyone's talking about Trump's tariffs. So I'm doing a little roundtable on Trump's tariffs, baby. We're going to talk about it. But thanks for having me on, guys. If people would like to reach out to me personally, you can find me on Twitter at RaisedByGiants8 and Instagram at RaisedByGiantsPod.
Hell yeah, man. All right. Thank you again for coming on, and good luck with your next show. I hope you break some new ground with the Trump tariffs. All right, guys. We'll see you next time, and in the meantime, pray for Xerox. He's having a hard time out there. I don't know.
All of Xerox, yeah.
Yeah, all of the Xeroxes. But obey, submit, comply. We'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real.
You can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see.